Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesdays with IHA and our preferred supplier, St. Logistics. Today, IHA's webinar is all about smart home technology and the crucial role that transportation and supply chains play in getting the technology to market. Today's presenters are Dino Moeller, Executive Vice President of Client Solutions, and Keith Warren, Vice President of Transportation at St. Logistics. For those of you who have not already met the St. team through their involvement with IHA's CHESS events, they are a national third-party logistics provider specializing in the CPG and housewares industry. We are pleased to have them delivering today's presentation on smart home technology. Dino?
Great. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you for all the folks that are listening to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour with us. Our intent here is to unleash some of the insights that we've gained over the several years of providing CPG fulfillment, and more importantly, over the last 10 years to so on smart home. Smart home was, as you know, defined in the last couple of years, but from a housewares and durable goods environment, we've been involved for quite a while. Let me give you a real quick introduction to who St. is. Our value proposition to the market is to create solutions that are customized for our client community, focusing primarily on exciting our customer's customer. We service some diverse brands. Today, you'll see some of those on the screen. We have 15 locations around the U.S. that primarily serve as both warehousing, forward fulfillment, and reverse logistics operations. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. We're located in Chicagoland, Romeoville, Illinois. We've been in business since 1983. We're privately held. We have a very flat leadership organization, so Keith and I are two of the leaders that we make decisions and move pretty agilely as our customer demand. As you see the community of customers that we service, housewares and durable goods, consumer packaged goods, common, and then food and health. Several of these clients are in a smart home type of environment, either providing electronics via app or IoT, which is Internet of Things, to their customer community. And we're providing both forward and reverse logistics. Parrot, as an example here, we're doing flashing technology, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's flashing before it's consumed. So our value proposition is to look at supply chain as not just what happens at the warehouse and forward, but look holistically on how we can add value throughout the supply chain, from manufacturing insight to the reverse logistics if that occurs. You'll see PetCube, we're going to use it as a minor case study, and Blue Air. These are all IHA members for the last several years. They're also CHESS members, so we're pleased to be able to support not only the community IHA has brought together, bringing insights and innovation, but also for our customers who are part of that. What's interesting, a decade ago, the idea of controlling your home thermostat, lights, and security systems remotely via a smartphone would have seemed probably futuristic. But as early and as soon as 2017, it proved that the year became the year of the smart home. Today, with revenues from the category set to surpass $19 billion, that's $19 billion, in the U.S. this year by Statista analyzed, this market is to grow. They're also foreseeing that this market by 2022 will grow to $34 billion. There's other folks like Zion Market Research are forecasting this market at $53 billion by 2022. This is just a big market, and it's an exciting market that folks can, start to play in. If you look at the role of logistics, essentially the elements of supply chain and logistics in this industrial IoT become extremely competitive. There's autonomous applications, there's cyber physical systems, and of course, many other ways that you're driving from your app phone to do lots of things around the house, beyond security, beyond just monitoring, but also giving you this digital footprint of looking on how you manage the home better and more holistically. One such feature that's growing in popularity is the app-based technology, as I just mentioned. This allows consumers, of course, to remotely manage everywhere from housewares, small appliances, to other devices. The reason that we're bringing these types of technologies up is that today, even though you can manage your AC settings, you can monitor things around the house, and we're going to show you, if you look at the lower right, you can even snack your pet. It's important to realize that this type of technology and the interface that it does with the consumer needs to not only be at the warehouse and go forward, and that's typically where folks think as a logistics provider, as we are, start. But in reality, it goes back into the manufacturing cell and so forth, and we're gonna talk about that. But with the likes of Alexa and Spotify and Google Home and Amazon Echo, what is happening is that folks are being able to activate themselves away from the home, creating the smart home. They're also able to monitor things that they may have never been able to, beyond the child care, beyond security, but even doing diagnostics on what's happening, and even electronically having service folks come to take care. So it is really becoming a more productive environment. And with that productive environment, there are challenges that occur. But if you look at some of the complexities embedded in the electronic controls here, and this is PetCube, one of our clients, they have a really sweet technology that allows you to snack your dog when you're away from home. But these things are all app-driven. So you've got embedded electronic controls, Wi-Fi accessibility to the products, and things of that sort. So it really becomes, you're moving from the bowl to an automated autonomous dispenser, which I think as you look at that, you have to go backwards and look at what are some of the factors that I can support the mechanism as it relates to the consumer, meaning does it need to be completely automated and in advance? Meaning, so what we'll show you is some things we do with consumers is postponement manufacturing, where we're actually feeding, doing some assembly of this product before consumption. It may be it's downloading the technology because there's so many upgrades as it starts to arrive to the point of consumption and things of that sort. So some of the smart home product enhancements that we've been working on have an impact on your supply chain. They have an impact on your transportation marketplace and network also. If you look at just today, how some of these are working, if you look at incorporating smart home technology, it often begins, as I've mentioned, at the manufacturing cell. So it's not simply throwing a product on the shelf or throwing it to a doorstep. It's thinking through how do you impact and what's the customer experience. And from a supply chain perspective, if you look at the last 15 years, supply chain, even before it was a term, warehousing and transportation, it was really looked at as a cost line. In the last 7 to 10 years, it's become part of a differentiator. Today, I think it's really looked at as a strategy. And that's how we approach the conversations with our client, is to understand how we can fit into a bigger picture, meaning from a life cycle perspective, from the build of electronic, putting Wi-Fi in the product, to also communicating on how there may be other advances that we can do at point of consumption to speed it to market, or even make it more applicable to market, all the way through to the reverse side. When it comes back, what is the position or disposition that we need to take? But if you look at this screen that what I'm talking to is, it has a life cycle. It's about building, editing, hosting, and then of course training the customer service. We have about, out of all of our clients, a good 70% of them are active in returns management. And it always isn't a negative, meaning it's not that it's broke. It may be the wrong color, the wrong kind, or they're wanting to upgrade things of that sort. So disposition becomes very critical, and we'll talk through that in just a moment. But adding one piece of smart home technology to an item means that the manufacturer must be aware of how that electronics will build in the assembly. And what we've been doing for our clients is that all the assembly doesn't have to happen in one point. It can happen later in the cycle, closer to the warehouse, closer to consumption, allowing for postponement of things like duties and stuff of that sort. We call it retail readiness. And it does bring us closer to the customer experience. It allows us to not only react, but be proactive to the needs of the customer from insight and experience and things of that sort. There's a wide array of retail-ready configurations that we do today. One example that I'll spend some time talking about is flashing software. In the smart home ready products, it's typically an app-driven or a software-driven intelligence, right? So what we're doing today is the smartphone manufacturer may require us to do flashing technology. And when I'm talking about flashing technology, that means that it comes as a unit, and the operating intelligence or the systematic intelligence inside of it is not yet there. And the reason is that maybe by the time it's arrived to the warehouse or to the closest point of consumption, there's been an upgrade on the phone itself, maybe the provider, the carrier, or it's been a technology enhancement that the client has gained from feedback from customers, so that they brought this to say, hey, listen, we want to enhance this, and we want to do it quicker than a new version, or quicker than a recall, or quicker than it's already on the shelf and we're going to discount it because it's a later version. So it allows us to be quite a bit more proactive in bringing that. Consider smartphones and how apps and software are preloaded today when consumer purchases it. In the smart home goods, what we're trying to do is bring it closer to consumption. And you'll see as we go through some of these capabilities, we're doing it in lots of different factors, as simply as bundling, if our clients are doing some type of Amazon point of sale, relabeling. So even if it's language or price or what have you, as much as you can push it towards consumption, I think the better reaction the customer experience has as they go through that equation. So far, I've been talking about what happens in the warehouse or even prior to the warehouse. But what's happening today in the transportation of the finished goods to store is something that's extremely dynamic. It's very popular in the sense that it's on a lot of folks' P&L discussions and so forth. I'm going to intro Keith Warren, who's our VP of Transportation, to cover the next couple of slides and share his insight on what's happening from a transportation perspective.
Thanks, Dino, and welcome everyone to the transportation segment of this webinar. You might ask yourself, what does transportation really have to do with smart home products? And the answer really is a lot. The reality is pretty much everything moves on a truck. As you can see by the graphic here, 70% of what's delivered in the U.S. today is delivered by truck. And when you really take a look at that final mile portion, the number comes up higher into the 90% range. So, from a transportation standpoint, CPG manufacturers must be prepared to get their smart home products to the stores, consumers' hands, to the online and the brick and mortar retailers. And that's where transportation really becomes a critical element of the supply chain. Meeting consumer demand for smart home products relies heavily on an efficient transportation network that can deliver goods to consumers as fast as they can order. In today's transportation environment, that's really easier said than done. And, the reality is there's just not as much capacity as there once was. There's a lot more demand, a lot less drivers on the road, a lot less trucks on the road. If you look at the statistics from a truckload standpoint, in 2016, 3 out of 4 loads available on any given day are turned down or postponed due to not having an available truck. By December of 2017, that number had grown to 16 to 1. In 2018, those numbers have stayed pretty static at that level all year long. And as a result, that all filters down into the smart home products because it directly affects the LTL. It directly affects the parcel capacity out there as well. Give you a prime example, in the latter part of 2017, we were doing our analysis and our annual bids with our parcel carriers, and we actually had one of our parcel carriers who is very heavily vested in the less than truckload market as well, say that they were not bringing on any new customers in the LTL arena for at least 5 to 6 months because they just simply didn't have the capacity to onboard new clients and service them in the way that they needed to be serviced. So, when you look at that, where is the market growing and where is that, need for transportation specifically in the LTL and the parcel side? Well, it's grown by 9% annually and expected to be $343 billion by 2020. Everyone sees that there's definitely an aspect that people look at from the standpoint of how can I do this? What other options do I have? Next day, second day, USPS, UPS, FedEx, the variety of ways that things are happening. Amazon is experimenting with, personal car deliveries. Uber is making deliveries. So there's a lot of different variety. How do you tap into all of those different aspects of the transportation market? No doubt we're all in the same boat. Everybody wants it faster. But the reality is when we look at the market trends, people have said over and over again that they prefer to have it free versus fast. However, if you look at the trends over the years, in 2017, less than 35% of the people are saying that fast is 3 to 4 days. In 2015, that was the standard. That was considered fast. 3 to 4 day shipping was really fast. By 2017, we got to the point to where less than 35% of the people consider 2 days fast. If you could bounce to the next slide. So, what does that mean? So, just like your smart home products, where you want to be able to see who's ringing your doorbell when you're out to dinner and you're not at home, or you want to be able to throw that treat to your pet, when you're on a 3-day trip and you haven't had any interaction, you can see your pet on the video. The same types of interactions are occurring and need to occur on the smart home market from a variety of reasons. Not only just the end consumer, who might be that one person buying one product, it's one package, and they're trying to track and trace where that's at. But it could be a retail. It could be, your Walmart or your Target connection where you're shipping truckloads or less than truckload quantities, but they still want to have that track and traceability. The entire process for us and for a lot of people in this industry revolves around having the right technology in the right place at the right time. So, technology definitely plays a critical role in all of e-commerce, especially with smart home products where speed, traceability, and the customer experience are just paramount to success. The mighty pen and the old sales order pad have given way to online ordering, data moving at lightning speeds, and as such, automation is a key driver of the sales process from cradle to grave. It provides efficiencies not just in time and cost, but also in minimizing errors while ultimately streamlining communications with multiple parties. You may have a given order, let's say it's a retail ready order going to one of the big box stores, and you have to provide advanced shipping notices to multiple parties. Your provider that's picking the order, the end customer that's receiving it, the carrier that's moving it in the meantime, all of those data streams have to happen simultaneously. So automation in that technology is critical. It also allows you to manage by exception because you get to the point to where when things are occurring properly and notifications are going to the right individuals, at that point in time, all you're dealing with are the exceptions. Your workload is dramatically decreased. From the next bullet, continuous improvement and optimization. And Dino, I think, has mentioned co-location. He'll talk about it again in a minute, but in our environment, we have multiple customers in our warehouses. And what we've found over the years is there are a number of situations where multiple customer groups within our organization are picking orders that are going to those same destinations, a Walmart DC or a Target store or something along those lines on any given day. And having the technology have the ability to go in and recognize that those orders are all dropping on the same day, and instead of shipping multiple trucks, multiple different ways, and multiple different manners of delivery, that can be consolidated into one order, a lot more efficient, a lot more controllable, and definitely cost savings associated with that. So the other piece that we have with the technology is the consumer, not just the end consumer wanting to know that, hey, this particular item I'm buying is going to cost $9.95 to get here next day air, but the vendors, people such as yourself, are looking at, I'm going into a scenario where I'm bidding a new product, or I'm bidding into a new environment or a new location. How do I know that I'm in the right location? How do I know what my cost will be to service this new client from a transportation standpoint? And the technology that we employ gives us not only the ability to provide that data to you, but we also have the portals where you can come in yourself and do that what if analysis and take a look at what your cost might be to service that given client coming on board. From an execution standpoint, again, automation is critical. The more steps you can take out of the process, the more bits of communication that you can execute in an electronic format, the less mistakes you have, the faster data flows, and the smoother the transactions are. From an electronic track and trace standpoint, being able to know exactly where your orders are, especially in this environment where you're tracking not only that a given number of boxes are going from point A to point B, but you may need to know which specific items and down to the level of which serial numbers are in a given shipment and what status, where they're at any given point in time. Technology exists to do that today. And then obviously from a reporting and dashboard standpoint, being able to take a look at what's occurred, what's happened, pull data out in order to do those analysis and understand better how to make your business streamlined and a little bit more efficient day after day. The technology exists to do that as well. And Dino, we'll pass it back to you now.
Great, thank you, Keith. Appreciate it. I think some of the keys that Keith just talked about is that visibility. These typically smart home goods are of an increased value. Not only security is needed, but also that visibility if it's serial number or something associated with identification, both in the supply chain and at the consumption point. We have a client that provides point of care type of intelligence, and everything is serialized. And it starts to become the identifier to not only the cost of transportation and supply chain, but also the customer experience. So let's go a little bit further and not talk totally about the negative, but talk about what happens when the consumer buys a smart home product and it either doesn't work, it's not the right kind. The world of returns is a reality. It's a convenience, and in some cases, for some retailers and marketplaces, it's a strategy. CPG manufacturers must have a robust and specific plan for the space for returns management, also called reverse logistics. And I typically call it that, but in reality, it's a returns process. It's part of the supply chain. It's part of the strategy. It's an expected KPI that you can measure, define, and in fact, turn into an opportunity. At Lessing, we have several reasons that returns arise. For sometimes it's just the consumer changed their mind or their preference, or decides that they don't want the product at all. And part of the value of bringing to the customer is that that product still has value. And that disposition decision or process is really something that we focus on, not only from just putting an idea of refurbishing it or a multi-level disposition, which may mean to fix it, clean it, or in fact destroy it and give destruction value, but we also do parting. So what happens with technology and electronics is that the value, beyond just the operating value, is pretty significant. So it's not the old days of don't return it, just throw it away. There's more value there. One factor to consider in smart home enabled products is the technology doesn't always work purely as associated to the apps. It can be other typical things. One, the price is a little bit higher. The buyer often wants it repaired fast and replaced. And with one of our clients, Blue Air, we actually clean and fix and send back the exact unit. So that serial number follows the experience of the customer. So it creates intelligence that can help our manufacturer, our customer, look at usage value. So even though it's a smart home product, it creates smart, intelligent strategy to know how we're tracking that. So you hear a lot about blockchain, and blockchain has been in food and things of that sort, but blockchain is a reality happening in retail also. And retail, when I mean either on a shelf or at your doorstep, B2B or B2C. But that blockchain environment starts to give you good intelligence about how to replace certain pieces or parts of the product, what's going to fail eventually, and even how you sourced it. If you sourced a product or sourced a component, you can track it backwards. And that's where blockchain is starting to give, I think, high intelligence to the reverse logistics marketplace. Keith had talked about co-location. It's very traditional in the past that you would have a return center different than your fulfillment center. And I think the idea was that they're separate processes, they're separate values in the value of the product. It's a separate customer experience. And that's been the common path, is for a retailer to send it back to the manufacturer. Traditionally, the manufacturer fixes it, replaces the product, and then they plan on some type of disposition. But in many situations, and what we provide today to our clients, is that we do co-locate return goods with regular inventory. Because in reality, that regular inventory, even if it's returned, can have a new life cycle. It can have a refurbished life cycle, so it continues to add value. It can have intelligence that we can gain on, as I mentioned, what is the defect? Or maybe it's not a defect, maybe it's just the color. And we can track those things and provide good data back to our client, which they can also through customer service, but it brings one more level of customer experience. It's a physical customer experience. So we're truly touching the product, looking at the product, and knowing if it's a Wi-Fi unit, why is the Wi-Fi continuing to turn off? Or if it's the plate on the front of it continues to be dented, why is that happening? And we've brought ideas back to our clients that provides intelligence as a reverse logistics provider. It's refurbishing, it's repairing, it's cleaning, but you really start to understand your total cost. And even by retailer, you can understand the returns ratios to help understand how you market to that. So this whole returns management concept isn't just about getting the product back. It is totally about the customer experience, but making sure that the credit is given on time, that the value is repositioned or destructed. But it isn't just about return it and waste it. There's secondary markets. There's all the things that happen that I think as a provider, us or others that are in our community can add real value to the manufacturer to engage and touch that point of disposition or control. As we start to conclude here, the top 3 things that smart home ready manufacturers must be ready for. And I'm going to list these 3, but there's some other things that you need to think about is the complexities of adding smartphone features to your products. They really are an enhancement and a supply chain discussion. It fits into marketing, it fits into finance, it fits into physical procurement, it fits into marketing, customer experience, reverse. So that type of product, it is a bigger picture. And where we've been successful is the engagement of talking through those environments before they happen. So waking up in the morning, figuring out where our customer needs to go and trying to get there first. And that's strictly by us being able to have good, hearty, open conversations about supply chain. The second is that realize, as Keith had highlighted, same day, next day order delivery is harder to achieve than ever before because of the market crunch, but it doesn't mean the demand's going away. And, some of the worlds that are being created from the likes of marketplaces like Amazon and so forth, it's happening even sooner. I think the thing here to understand is what your customer wants. It tends to that folks will come in when we're sitting down and doing our discovery. They'll say, hey, I want same day order, same day delivery. And then you can always have that cost discussion. But at the end of the day, cost, capability is one thing, but what is the customer experience wanting? It's back to the fast, as Keith highlighted. And the third one is have a consistent, reliable way to manage returns. I think this is the number one thing that fails. And when we do a discovery with a client, we walk through their supply chain to understand. And it is very typical when we get to the back end, which can also be the start of a new end or a new cycle. When we talk about reverse logistics, it isn't always part of strategy. It's part of a consequence. And we really feel in the smart home ready manufacturer environment that it needs to be part of strategy and part of something that I think can create value, even if it's a line item on the P&L or an experience from a customer that will drive that in the intelligence that you can gain from it. So, Jenny, I'm going to open this up for questions and discussion. Thank you very much for the time, and we will be here to address some questions as they may arise.
Great. Thank you so much, Dino and Keith. We do have a few questions. And the first question is, do you partner with parcel carriers?
Yeah, absolutely. We parcel with all the major parcel carriers as well as the U.S. Postal Service to the point to where we can manage not only the shipments that we're in control of, but we also have scenarios where a client may have a pre-existing deal and we can budget off of their accounts as well and manage either way. So yeah, we definitely have the ability to interact with every major parcel carrier out there.
Perfect. The second question, how do you handle peak season type of large volumes, both from a warehouse and transportation perspective?
Keith, I'll take this first part of it. You know, the key in managing peak season isn't as much about the execution, because I mean it is, but it's about pre-planning. One of the things we spend a lot of time, and even if you're not outsourcing and you're insourcing, you're doing it yourself, it's about looking at forecast and planning. We know today, especially with all the tariff potentials or the tariff actuality, that there's a lot of POs that have been dropped, and we're going into a new peak season. It's not just the retail peak season, it's also an inbound U.S. peak season. So really it's about planning space, making sure that we have the ability to expand in our facility. Our labor strategy is that of not only we have full-time FTEs, but we strategically align ourselves with temporary labor. That temporary labor has already been defined on what requirements we may need from them, and we start to execute. So the key here is how do we handle it is by we plan for it. Not saying that there's not a Friday at the end of the month that happens and somebody's month-end surge is there. That's a common thing. But even in those environments, we're talking about it, how we're going to handle it, and how we're going to plan it from a warehouse perspective. Keith?
Yeah, and a very similar story on the transportation side. I mean, obviously, the more advance notice that we have that something's going on, the more planning that we can do, lining up potential providers, carriers, service providers of all variety is critical to the process. The more detailed the information, the more exact we can get on those forecasts, obviously, the better. In addition to that, we have a number of relationships with truck, rail, local P&D providers all over the country that we've had for, dozens and dozens of years that gives us access to, sort of those local market peak varieties of capacity where, we may have, as Dino said, it's not your normal, end of the season going into Christmas rush where you expected, but maybe there's a run on a certain type of item and we've got to get, 40 truckloads out at one given time. We've got the capacity to reach out to some of these providers and get things, on the spot market. We're also not afraid to, put our own assets against it where the situation is correct and go out and rent equipment, bring drivers on board to handle those types of emergencies.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question. We currently have a transportation department in-house here at our corporate office. They do all the scheduling, booking, and claims. What would I need to provide you to get a quote?
Well, really, the discovery meeting to begin with would be the best method to start off. Really understanding your business more than just simply the data and the quoting, understanding what your needs are, what the challenges are, and from then it's a pretty simple and basic process. We have templates that we provide and instructions and so forth on how to get the data that we're looking for, whether it be truckload, rail, parcel, air shipments, things of that nature. We've got kind of a really defined program and process to get those quotes back to you. And we also have, from the one-off transactional basis, we have a brokerage department. So, if it happens to be a truckload here and there or just something kind of one-off, we can do those ad hoc as well.
I think also, Jenny, to answer the question, I think whomever asked the question, or even anybody that's thinking through it, is you really need to sit down first and ask yourself, is this what you want to do? Is this your strategy? Are you a manufacturer and you're focused on goods and sales and customer experience, or are you a transportation company that is a manufacturer? And I really feel that when we sit down and speak to folks, and they say, hey, give me a quote. A quote for what? A quote, yeah, for cost, but it's also, where does it fit? How is it going to fit into your ability to bring the product to the market fast, quality, and on budget? And is that a competency? And I think that's as Keith just highlighted, there's lots of mechanisms for us to help you through that. But I think it really starts at the boardroom or the conference room to say, hey, is this what we should be doing? Is this who we are? And really go backwards from there or forward from there.
Okay, great. How is the role of a 3PL changing in light of the types of smart home advancements talked about today?
I'll take this one. The reality of it is the outsourced 3PL, there's lots of different terminologies. This community is really a community of intelligent, technology-influenced companies that are bringing solutions. So today, because of this smart home advancement, it really is starting to use technology, even in our facilities, differently. It's forecasting differently, and forecasting means it's just not a outbound fulfillment like we talked about. It's about reverse logistics. It's becoming more involved in organizations like IHA to understand, what is the customer and the customer's customer asking for. So it's beyond just being a reactive provider and saying, hey, we provide warehousing. The days of just providing warehousing, isn't really in the game as it relates to supply chain. We need to go deeper into services and deeper into providing economic ways and process improvement ways of growing with your business. So I think the biggest thing that's changed as a provider, we think differently today. It isn't about base. It's not just about best practices. It's about next practices. It's about improving. And I think, Jenny, for whomever asked, that's really our key, is we need to be moving forward, than doing what we used to do. So I think that's what's changed the most, is the agility.
Oh, great. Another question we have for you all do you have any advice for selecting the ideal location for a co-located warehouse that is good for both regular and returned inventory? I mean, how do we know we're in the right geographical area?
Keith, I'll take it the first time.
Sure.
I think the reality of it is even what Keith talked about in our discovery phase, having the right information, data, allows you to, because emotionally you could say, hey, our location, our corporate office is in Topeka, let's put a location there. It's about where's your inbound points and where is your customer community. Typically, if it's going outbound to a customer, it's pretty close to the same reverse. So you really just work through that. But the key is looking at where are you operating within, and then you kind of go backwards. Today, if you did what's called an Opta site, which is a technology, and said, no data included, just show me the best place in the U.S. to to service the U.S., it would say maybe Vincennes, Indiana. There's no locations, there's no warehouses in Vincennes. There's a university, and there's not really great highways. So what happens is you take that data and then you start overlaying your inbound and your outbound. And then you start looking at the states and the taxation, the labor strategy, the wages. So it isn't just as simply as throwing a dart onto the board. It has some intelligence, but the first thing to start off with is know your points of inbound or nodes and where your customer community is. And I think then the answer just comes pretty clear after you then overlay some of the other factors. But it's really about not just emotionally looking at it, but statistically and in a strategy looking at it.
Yeah, I would agree. And you know, adding to that, you know, the transportation element, you know, in today's modern market plays a very large role. So, you know, overlaying that best location from the standpoint of managing the freight in and out and getting as close to your consumer as possible is actually overlaid also with the transportation costs and the modes. Is it, you know, primarily a truckload? Can it be rail served? You know, are your customers parcel? Where are those, you know, pools of customers? Does it follow the population base in a true B2C type of a format, as opposed to most of our clients are going to be in an industrial type of environment, and here are the markets we want to be in. And then over and beyond that, you know, what is the optimal number of markets? You know, should we look at a single site, a multi-site, and how that all plays into the equation? All of those types of strategies are, you know, significantly easier in today's world to do, you know, sort of that what if scenario and start, as Dino said, overlaying those various components of the cost into the equation to come to the best answer.
Well, that is great. That looks like that is the last of all our questions. I would like to thank everyone for attending today's seminar or webinar, and like to thank Keith and Dino and Lasaint, the team at Lasaint, for all they've done as a preferred supplier of IHA. And for those of you who would like to receive this, please reach out to Dino or Keith, or you could go to our website at www.housewares.org. And once again, thank you for joining us on Webinar Wednesdays. Thank you, Lasaint. Thank you, Dino and Keith. Have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.